I ask everyone to look at the stumbling blocks in their lives and see them as stepping stones. Hi, I'm Linda Watson-Call. I'm so glad you could join me for today's episode of Dragonfly Soup. What's the biggest disappointment that you've ever had? Think about it for a moment. How did you handle it? Did you seclude yourself from people? Or did you start acting out, doing uncharacteristic things? Did you cry out in distress to your best friends, to everyone and everyone who would listen? Or just become quiet and sullen? There's no right or wrong answer to the way you handle a setback or a letdown, as long as you decide to overcome the disappointment and move on, because better things are coming. Many years ago, my children and I took horseback riding lessons at a wonderful facility. The lessons were more than reasonably priced, the staff was great, and the experience was very positive for all of us. Then, without notice, the facility closed down. There were all sorts of rumors as to why it was closing, but the fact remained we could no longer ride there. I looked into other places, but the cost was more than I could afford for 4 people riding every other week. I didn't want to believe that our horse time was finished, but I figured it was, at least for the moment. Then, about 6 months later, I was looking through the newspaper for no apparent reason, and a small ad caught my eye. It said something like, "If you love horses and can work with persons with special needs, we could use your help. To volunteer, call the number listed below." Well, that caught my attention. I called the number. They needed people to groom horses and then lead a horse or sidewalk the riders with special needs. My daughter and I volunteered immediately. It was great. We really enjoyed working with the horses, the staff, and the riders. This was a new start for me. Being a teacher, I saw the positive effect this activity had on the riders. But more than that, it changed the direction of my life. As it turned out, I married one of the volunteers that I had met there. A few years later, we purchased 2 horses, and then a few more, and started our own therapeutic riding facility. Beth Morin wrote in her story Footprints, "I ask everyone to look at the stumbling blocks in their lives and see them as stepping stones." My disappointment about a riding facility closing led to a new and exciting life because I didn't see it as a stumbling block. A friend of mine once told me how she was devastated when her parents announced that the family was moving to another state. Not just another town, but another state. Here she was, looking forward to her junior year of high school and the new activities she had signed up for. Now she had to leave it all behind. Not to mention that she'd be leaving her friends. Some of these friends were her friends since 1st grade. She said she plotted on how she would make a deal to stay at a friend's house to complete high school, or how she would make life miserable for her parents for doing this to her. But there was no getting around the move. Oh, and this was in the day before Facebook, FaceTime, and email. She could call her friends after 7 in the evening when the rates were lower, or write letters. Yeah, that's a lot of fun for a 16-year-old. Her family moved to a small town. She was surprised that even though the student body of her new school was probably half the size of her old high school, they still had a lot of activities that she could participate in. It was the small class size, though, that had the biggest effect on her. You know, she was one of those kids who never cared for science. In her old school, she only had to take 1 science class to graduate, but this was a new school and a new state. She had to take 2 science classes, and they wouldn't count the general science classes she had already taken. She decided she would make the best of it. After all, it was just 2 classes. Her biology teacher was one of those people who could make everything sound exciting. My friend said she not only aced the class, but discovered she really did like science. And the same thing happened again in her chemistry class. Today, she's a biochemist with our state's environmental agency and loving every minute of it. She says before the move, she thought the worst thing that could happen to her was that move, but it opened up doors she had never expected to go through. She could have used the new school and the new town as a stumbling block, but instead it was her stepping stone to a brilliant career. You know, we all have disappointments or stumbling blocks no matter where we are in our lives. We have a goal to do something or be something, and for one reason or another, it just doesn't materialize. We can either dwell on what didn't happen, maybe even do things that sabotage any other good events that might come to us, or we can accept that things don't always go the way we had hoped and move on. We can step up and move on to new opportunities. We can step up to a new way of life. We can step up to realize there is more available for us than we had ever imagined. Why don't you share with us, either in the comments below or a private message, how your biggest disappointment turned into something wondrous? And be sure to click like for this week's episode. And while you're at it, share it with your friends. And I'll see you next week, right here on Dragonfly Soup. Here's to our transformation and our best year ever. What does your dream life look like? A home in the country? A great paying job? Your own business? It can be yours, you know. Anything you want in life can be yours, regardless of your current situation. I know because I did it. I was newly divorced with a teenage daughter and an insurmountable debt, living in a small apartment in the city. Within 5 years, my income skyrocketed. I built my dream home in the country and started my own multimedia development business. I also realized my childhood dream of owning horses. I was able to do this because I discovered the way the universe works and how you can manifest everything you want by following specific principles. These principles have been followed by some of the wealthiest people in our country: Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, even Benjamin Franklin. You can learn these principles, and they are now in my book, Living an Abundant Life. Each chapter in this book explains a method that I used and shows you how you can achieve your goals by using these principles. Living an Abundant Life is available on Amazon, but if you click the link below and order this paperback version through my bookstore, I'll send you an autographed copy, no extra charge. Start creating your dream today. You have the power, and this book will show you how.